The event is co-hosted by the University Library and the Center for Language Education. I'm Arthur McNeil from CLE. We're delighted to see so many people here. We're aware that we're competing for an audience this evening with another famous dialogue which is taking place in Hong Kong this evening. Anyway, it's my great pleasure to introduce our distinguished visitor, who until recently was our colleague here at UST. Philip Yeung is an English language expert. He is a very famous journalist, as you'll know from reading our local media. He's also a famous writer. Until recently, he was a speechwriter to the president of this university, and he's also been a ghostwriter to a number of other local VIPs. So you've probably been on the receiving end of Philip's speeches. He's also written a number of books based on Philip's ideas about English teaching, and I know some of you have attended some of the previous talks he's given at the university. His talks are totally different from any of the talks given by English teachers. He comments in the local media, often very critically, on the education system. He has got this amazing advantage of being able to write English when other people who give people advice on how to write English can't write English as well as Philip does. So he's got us up here to the top of the hill, and I hope he's going to tell us some of his own secrets. Can I now ask Philip to turn all of us upside down? Please welcome Philip Yeung.
Thank you, brother. Well, you're up here on the hill. I hope it's not all downhill from here on. Anyway, well, the title, actually, I have to confess, I got this title from reading one of the chapters in another book. It's actually called Teaching English Upside Down. But other than the title itself, nothing much is the same. So, I want to start by sharing with you the story of Helen Keller. I don't know, most of you are too young to know who she is. Well, she was blind from an early childhood disease. And as a result of that, she became very frustrated, not knowing how to speak or how to name things, until a woman came along, and that woman is not very famous. I mean, Helen is very famous, of course, but Anne Sullivan Macy wasn't. And Anne Sullivan Macy was the teacher who one day guided her to this faucet or a tap, and she poured cold water over her hand. And after feeling the wetness and the coldness, she taught her, well, this is water. Now, why am I telling you this story? It is to say that we who are sighted take language for granted. And there's so much beauty in the language. It is a shame that somehow we have to live with so much dead language in the way we write and the way we speak. So therefore, I am saying we should be a bit like Helen Keller. That single word, water, was a living word which awakened her soul. Okay, so what's this? The topic is about learning English upside down. And the point I want to make is that we are so obsessed with all the rules and stuff that often we forget what the primary purpose of language communication is. And that is, you want to influence someone else's behavior or opinion. So the impact theory is vital. We must now return to see the forest, and for the time being, forget about the trees. Now, if you look at the modern style, and you look at what is readable, you will find the following. You know, it has the virtue of simplicity, it has great variety, it is subtle, it is coherent, and there's always an element of surprise. Now, I suggest to you that in English, there are features of the language where you can find these virtues exemplified. I invite you to tap into them. Now, one thing about teaching Chinese or teaching Chinese English is the fact that the two languages are so different. In fact, I say that there is a culture shock when you introduce a Chinese person to English. It's so vitally different. Why do I say that? Because, as you know, Chinese has been described as ideographic language. In other words, one character, one concrete image. Now, given that kind of a background, we have a tendency to look down on function words, words that have no content, like with, for, on, that sort of thing, and we just don't think they're important enough. And I'm saying to you, if you ignore these function words, you will never master the English language. Well, how do you explain this to a Chinese person? You say, I have a contract with you, or that I have a contract on you. Of course, everything is the same except for those two little words, right? But one is being a friend with you, working with you. The other one is having a contract to kill you, right? So everything is different except for those two words. Now, right now we are in the midst of the so-called umbrella revolution. And here I want to say to you that there's something peculiar about the English language. A lot of the beautiful words are observation-based. And you know, the funny thing is, it takes a Western journalist to come up with the concept of calling the Hong Kong protest, if you like, the umbrella revolution. It was not a local person. It was a Western journalist who saw this. Okay? Now, then you have all these other things you are familiar with. Helicopter parents, boomerang kids. Do you know who are boomerang kids? Anybody who knows? I tell you what, if you do, our director here has kindly given some souvenirs for those who give the right answer. So what is a boomerang kid? In fact, we have a Chinese equivalent for it. Okay. Anybody? Well, the Chinese equivalent is, in Mandarin, 啃老族, 是吧? In other words, you know what a boomerang is? You throw out this thing, and it comes back to you, right? Now, the grown-up children were not able to support themselves, so they returned to live with their parents. And that's why it's called a boomerang kid. But the Chinese are more, I don't know, more frightening. You know, you want to eat up your parents. That's what it says. You eat their old bones or something. Now, so all these things take observation. Of course, you're all familiar with bottleneck, the ripple effect, domino effect. And if you're driving, suddenly the car lost control, the car fishtailed. You know what I mean? Now that is based on observation. Okay, now there's a theory. Other and I could engage in a debate about this. That the natives learn English differently from the way we do. That somehow they learn it subconsciously. You don't start by rules. You don't start by all this grammar complexity. And it's subconscious. Some people say it's immersion. Now, I am saying to you, based on my own experience and observation, that in fact, there need not be this kind of a demarcation. In fact, we can simply copy what the natives are doing. And I'm doing this every single day of my life. So I don't live in Canada anymore. I live here. And the environment is such that you really have to look out for somebody to speak English with. Now, recently, I think in Hong Kong we call ourselves a global city. I really have my doubts about that. And I'll tell you why. There's a friend of mine who came back from the US, and he's a dog lover. So one day he saw this cute little doggy, and immediately he called out reflexively in English. He said, "Hey doggy, come to daddy, come to daddy." And the dog owner, who's a woman, says, she was very bad. She said, "My dog doesn't speak English." And another friend of mine, she went to Mongkok, and she ordered a set lunch. And she blurted out, having lived for so many years in San Francisco. And she said, "Oh, I want number 6. Oh, the moment she said number 6 in English, the attitude of the waitress was completely changed. Because how dare you speak to me in English when you should be speaking to me in Chinese? People don't make allowance for the fact that we have in our midst a lot of people who are returnees. They look at your face, they say you should speak Chinese only. So hopefully we'll change attitude, some of the attitude here. Now, I say observation is very interesting. This is how a US admiral, how he defined a carrier, you know what a carrier is, right? A big battleship, right? He said it's 4.5 acres of American sovereignty. I like that. Nobody dare touch it. Wherever it goes, it's a kingdom unto itself. That kind of thing. Oh, by the way, what's a seagull manager? If you know what a seagull manager is, I'll give you this. Souvenir from the language center. What is a seagull manager? Use your imagination. What is a seagull manager? No one wants this? Give it a try. Come on. I know some people are taking attendance, but don't worry about the grade, okay? Okay, I tell you what it is. A seagull manager is someone who flies in, hovers over you, makes a lot of noise, shits on you, and flies away. That's what it is called, a seagull manager. There are a lot of terms like this. How about wasp wave? You know what Wang Feng Yu, right? You know what it is. Okay. Oh, and you know the Lucky Sperm Club? Are you anybody here a member of the Lucky Sperm Club? Which means you're born into a rich family. You are lucky sperm. And you belong to the Lucky Sperm Club. And you all know about bee stung lips. Now, which actress comes to mind? Hey, Jolie, okay. Who said it first? Okay. Wow. Yes. Angelina Jolie, right. Oh, I like the last one best. The 2 feet rule. Now, the 2 feet rule applies to Wellesley College, a girls' college. And the university administration set a rule. It says that you can entertain male visitors, provided at any given one time there are 2 feet on the ground. Meaning, you're not supposed to go to bed with her. Meaning, 2 feet has to be on the ground. I don't know, maybe you can still do it, I don't know. But they have a 2 feet rule, all right? I'm sorry there are younger kids here, but that's unintentional. He doesn't know what I'm talking about anyway. Anyway.
He tried like faith.
Well, that is something for you to investigate. Okay. Now, all these other terms like low-hanging fruit, in the Chinese would be what? 近水樓台先得月, right? Low-hanging fruit. Tip of the iceberg, we borrow all these from them, right? Oh, and the last one, these two, thin end of the wedge. I like this concept very much. You know what a wedge is, right? Wedge is like shaped like that, right? So if something bad starts, it gets worse as it goes in, right? So that's what it means. I like the last one too. What is a fat finger error? I think you deserve it. Which means you have fat, stubby fingers, and you press the wrong button, and let's say you're buying stock, you press the wrong button, you get the wrong figure, right? Thank you. Okay. What's a love handle? You won't get a second prize, you know. That means the guy's got a layer of fat around here, the waist, for the woman to hang on to. So that's isn't that right? Have you got one? Okay. And how do you describe catching lightning in a bottle? Or that the car peel off in this direction, like you peel off a banana, right? That it suddenly takes off in a different direction. And the bridge pancaked during the earthquake, suddenly collapsed flat, like a pancake. Oh, purple state. Now, you know, any idea what a purple state is? Well, in the US, you have blue state and red state, right? Blue state is if you vote for Republicans, and red is if you vote for Democrats. So a purple state is what? A purple state is a swing state. It could vote either one, either way. It's imaginative, you know? People think about that sort of thing. Oh, finally, what is a basket case? First of all, basket case is what? When you say someone is hopeless, it's a basket case. But what is a basket case? It's very graphic, actually. A basket case is when somebody's 4 limbs are cut off, amputated, and he's carried around in a basket. So he's totally hopeless. You can use this to describe a country that, you know, let's say Cambodia is a basket case, totally dependent on others, that kind of thing. Okay, so now, about the Chinese language, because we deal mostly with concrete images, right? In fact, Chinese is a very compact language, and it's great for poetry. It's wonderful for poetry. It's very powerful, very emotional, but it's very weak when it comes to describing abstract things and process. That's why we don't have gerund. Okay, and we have very insufficient abstract words. Look at the first one. Bestiality. You know what that is? Now, in Chinese, you would have to say something so terrible. You want to hear it. You don't want to hear it. You know what that is? Any idea? Anybody know what bestiality refers to? I'm sorry, it's too nasty to refer to, but I have to explain to you. It means sex with animals. 受交. Now, the Chinese is 受交. You know how it's not polite language, is it? But in English, somehow you get away with it. Well, of course, irregularity is when you have problem going to the toilet, right? Difficulty with your bowel movements, right? Okay. Oh, well, CY Leung right now has a likability factor. In other words, a lot of people don't seem to like him. So here's a likability. I don't know how you translate. Also, you try translating motherhood to me and brotherhood in Chinese. Can you? Of course, we have the Cantonese, like 阿媽係女人, something like that. But that's a whole statement for one word. Okay, now gerund. I mentioned this today. I want to talk about this because these are things people neglect. They ignore them, they overlook them, and you suffer. Your writing suffers. And gerund is such a very vital part of good writing. Look at this. Having it all means you got everything, right? Money, health, a good-looking wife, this and that. Simply saying that Assad, who is Assad? The president of Syria, right? Must go is not a policy. The rich don't get rich by being angelic, by being nice. And life is not about getting and having, it's about giving and being. So I'm saying to you that phrases are not scraps of language we can ignore. In fact, they make the writing very subtle and very sophisticated. And you see a lot of that in advertising. HSBC, the world's local bank. Now, look at this one. I like this very much. He said, I like Clinton in doses, which means, you know, Clinton likes to talk. President Clinton, he's a big talker. And if you are stuck with him for 1 hour, you get tired very quickly. So Obama says, yeah, I like Clinton, but in small doses, in small amounts at one time. Don't give me 4 hours of Clinton. I can't handle it. That's very delicate, you know. Okay, I met it on the rebound. All these phrases. What do you mean by I met it on the rebound? Well, you fell out of love or you got divorced and you were down but you bounced back, right? On the rebound, after you're getting separated or divorced or broken up from somebody. Now, this is one I discovered and it's fantastic. Lolita, do you know the story, the novel Lolita? I think the Chinese translation for that in Cantonese is 一樹梨花壓海棠. I don't know how to do it in Mandarin. Can somebody help me with that?
一树梨花压海棠.
Louder, please.
一樹梨花壓海棠.
Very good. So you know that, eh? Now, okay. Here is the opening. Here is the opening of that famous book. Look at this. It says, Lolita, light of my life, fire of my loins, my sin, my soul, Lolita. The tip of the tongue taking a trip of 3 steps down the palate to tap at 3 on the teeth, Lolita. She was low, playing low in the morning, standing 4 feet 10 inches in one sock. She was Lola in slacks. She was Dolly at school. She was Dolores on the dotted line. But in my arms, she was always Lolita. You look at this whole passage, the most famous passage there is. And it is full of, mostly of phrases. All little images. Very, very powerful. Now, what the story is, this professor, this aging professor, fell in love with a young teenage girl, right? And he was tortured, mentally tortured by her and this and that. But he was madly in love with her, and this is how he put it in the opening of that book. You think about this. In fact, I should have underlined practically everything. I really should have. I tell you one thing. The book went downhill from the opening. The writing, anyway. So now we have all these. Okay, let's look at preposition from a functional perspective. That we rely on preposition to give us simplicity. For example, I mentioned this before in another talk, is that what is on is in everything that's on, that is going on, is in this newspaper. He's not that into you. He doesn't really love you all that much. Mo Yan is a Chinese Nobel laureate for literature. He is in paperback. That is now, his books are now published in paperback. But you don't have to spell it all out. He's between marriages. I don't know how you translate, I lost her at hello. In other words, she didn't like me and I didn't like her. Somehow we did not connect. He left a will against the possibility that he might die. Now, I challenge you, how many Chinese people would use against in the sense of in preparation of, to prepare for his dying? Now, rhyme is also simple too. Well, you know, wedlock is padlock. What's padlock? 枷锁是吧？结婚是枷锁啊。Okay. Now, better together. What slogan is that? That is
anti-independence movement.
Anti-independence in Scotland, right? So they came up with a rhyme. We are better together. Let's not separate. Let's not break away from Britain. Oh, Hillary Clinton is now said to be running for the next president of the United States, and there's a movement going on now. It's ready for Hillary. I think China will have trouble if Hillary becomes president. She's very anti-Chinese. Romance without finance. Can you do it? Now, he looked cooked. What do you mean by cooked? He's finished. Okay? He's finished. Basically, it's toast. If it bleeds, it leads. Now, Apple Daily and tabloids, they like to see blood on the front page. And if you see blood, then the ratings go up. But that's why it says, if it bleeds, it leads. Okay. Biology is destiny. You are beautiful, then your life, you got it made. The last one, ring by spring. Again, this refers to girls graduating from Wellesley College, a very famous girls liberal arts college in the United States. And the girls all have anxiety when they are graduating. The first priority is to get a ring on their finger by spring, to find a boyfriend or a husband before they leave university. Okay, now definition is another great technique to achieve simplicity. Religion is 50% salesmanship. Hong Kong is New York without crime. Heart is a prison. Art is the elimination of the unnecessary. Who said this? Picasso. Picasso has said that. A clean conscience is a good pillow. Hunger is the best sauce. Sexual harassment is when an ugly man wants some. If you are handsome, it will not be called sexual harassment. It may be called, I don't know what. I think Arthur may have an answer for that. Okay, silence is a woman's best garment. If you keep quiet, you look pretty. You look very attractive. And Iceland is no longer a country. It is a hedge fund. You know, Iceland went bankrupt because they were speculating, right, during the financial crisis. Who is Benjamin Franklin? The reason they robbed the supermarket. So who is Benjamin Franklin? Well, the greenback, the US dollar note, has Benjamin Franklin, his picture, his image on it. In other words, it's money, right?
You go back to the previous slide.
Which one?
Previous slide.
Okay.
I want to get it back. So the answer to the third bullet is a threesome.
Oh. I think that's an invitation I would want to avoid. Thank you very much. Now, alliteration, of course, is also very useful for writing because, look, practice what you preach. You have an allergy to achievement. Some people say fear of failure or fear of success. You are pretty in pink. You are ravishing in red. Manners make this is an old language for makes. Manners make the man. Okay. Punctuality is the politeness of princes. There is a method in this manner. Who said this? Shakespeare. I like this one. Politics and prostitution are the only jobs where lack of experience is a virtue. And Tina Fey is the one who said this. Now, we Chinese are often very confused by verb transitive and verb intransitive, right? I tell you, in fact, this problem is a great opportunity. It is a huge opportunity. You look at this. Look at this. Oh, it's a love evolves. People change their minds. They fall of love, they fall in love, and so on. And Reagan embodies, which means when Reagan is a socially inclusive person. How do you say it in Chinese? 包含是吧? Inclusive. The hero doesn't act, he becomes. He doesn't say he becomes what, he just says he becomes. Normally it requires an object, but they do it without fear. Opportunity knocks. Lina capitalized. If her opponent is making a mistake, she capitalized. That means she took advantage of it. Without saying capitalize what? Notoriety travels. Exactitude matters. You want to do things with precision. Look at this. She looks daggers at me. What do you mean? What are daggers? Daggers are sharp, little knife, right? Okay. So if I look daggers at you, that means I hate you so much that my looks actually send out daggers at you. Normally, the word look doesn't require an object, right? Okay. Bush, Blair spent Britain into debt, Bush lied the US in the war. He nodded his agreement. Even though generally we say he nodded, and that's it. But now we make use of the verb intransitive. He shouted his approval. Or how about this? Cry me a river. Now, cry me a river, does anybody know what it means? Cry me a river means, actually it's used sarcastically. You can cry until you feel a river, and I won't feel sorry for you. That's what it means. Cry me a river. He sweats a river. It means he sweats a lot. You cry himself to sleep. Hong Kong atomizes. Right now, it feels like Hong Kong is atomizing, breaking up. Hong Kong is breaking up. I hope it doesn't last. Okay, now, when you want to be subtle, be negative. Try the negative approach. And I tell you why. Look at this one, for instance. Fertility doctors don't work for tips. If you want to say that fertility doctors, if you can't have babies, you go see a fertility doctor, right? But the fertility doctor doesn't work he charges a lot. If you say fertility doctors charge a lot of money, there's no skill involved, no technique involved. But if you say that he doesn't work for tips, it just sounds better. The negative approach sounds better. Here, I've written so many speeches. I have yet to find one single Chinese speaker using this line. He said, I couldn't be up here without thanking the sponsors. We just don't do that. Thank you so much. You will never use the negative. And why not? Suddenly there's a change of tone, you know. There's variety. Okay, I told this story before that Robert Hughes, he was hired for writing this one negative sentence. Just one sentence, he got hired at the New York Times. He said, God did not live in Hampstead and was not expected to act like a liberal. This is Chinese thinking, okay? We just don't think like that. And don't say things like that. Now, Lance Armstrong, you know who he is, the guy who was famous for what? Tour de France, he won 7 times, but I guess he was a drug cheat. So it's not about a bike. These are book titles, not your parents' playground. This is a slogan for Twitter. And Maureen Dowd, who wrote about President Clinton, he said, today he returned from a sentimental journey to the university, Oxford University. He was a Rhodes Scholar there, where he did not have. He said he did not. He had what? Drugs. Where he did not get drafted, and where he did not get a degree. Now, okay, I like the last one very much. She was in a car with him. They weren't talking business. So he left you to reach your own conclusion. What were they doing in a car if they were not talking business? All right? Somehow, the negative creates space for your imagination. Now, when the Canadian Prime Minister, Trudeau, Richard Nixon didn't like him at all because he was very independent. He would not line up behind the US in foreign policy. So Nixon called him an asshole. And people asked him, well, what do you think of the fact that the US president called you an asshole? And he said, oh, I like this so much. He said, I have been called worse things by better men. He did not say anything nasty about Richard Nixon, but he defended himself very well using the comparative approach. I have been called worse things by better men. Okay. Now, the last one is about the recent referendum in Scotland, where they say there are more panthers in the Edinburgh Zoo than there are Conservative MPs in Scotland. How many panthers are there? Maybe maximum 2, right? Courtesy of China. China loaned them the panthers, right? So this is a much better way of saying than, oh, there are very few Conservative MPs, right? So what I'm saying to you is that the negative and the comparative approach force the writer to be much more creative than if you're simply saying, using the positive approach. Okay, now these are cultural habits. They like interaction. It says here, this is it. You know the Ryder Cup team? Golf competition between US and Europe. Both teams are 12 people. And they don't like this guy, I think he was the captain. So the American team has 11 gentlemen in Tom Lehman. Meaning that Lehman is not a gentleman. The world's most dangerous killer is less than 3 inches tall. And you know what that is? Come on, you want a souvenir from the center? What's the world's most dangerous killer being less than 3 inches tall? This sound is so obvious, I can only give you this. What?
Is it a drug? Like a lethal drug?
You're close. You're close. I'm sure some of you have touched the stuff here. Your mouth is, yes? Yeah, very good. Wow. Hey, give this little kid a big hand. Wow. Yeah, I want to give you 2 things. He's so good. Thank you. Wow. My God. You guys got beaten by a little kid? just kidding. Okay, now. Okay, this is a senator. The two of them were in a TV debate, and he said, I want you to take a drug test. He says, I'll take a drug test if you take an IQ test. It's an indirect way of saying you are stupid, without calling him that. Now, then there's this other guy, or reverend, a priest, and the U.S. Senate. And he prayed for the senators. He said, no, no, no. I look at the senators and I pray for the country. And finally, Edna was a woman, of course, and Noel Coward, you know him, very famous playwright. Coward saw the woman wearing a tailor suit, and he said, oh, you almost look like a man. And she said, so do you. So now, in my writing, I have discovered this. I don't know if Arthur will agree with this. You have the active voice. You have the passive voice. I believe there is a third voice. And that third voice, I call it the reflexive voice. It's not active, it's not passive. It's somewhere in between. And let me explain. I tell you, the reflexive pronoun is something you really should try using. Look at this. The storm invited itself in. Instead of saying the storm came in or blew in, you have to accommodate yourself to the fact that she doesn't love you anymore. Tiger Woods took himself out of consideration for the Ryder Cup. I'm getting ahead of myself now. Chinese people would have a hard time imagining what do you mean by getting ahead of yourself. And don't take yourself too seriously. I think this is good advice. British girls like people men who don't take themselves seriously. Is that right?
Yes.
See? Here is a romantic tip for romance from somebody who knows. She's getting married. I give her a big hand too. Now, and how about this? I will see myself out. You don't need to see me out. I will see myself out. We just don't say that in Chinese. Of course, he is beside himself. What do you mean by beside himself? How can you be beside yourself?
So say if you're really excited and happy, right?
Or you are so upset, you are outside of yourself, you're out of control, you're beside yourself, right? You left your soul left your body, or that kind of thing, right? Okay. The golf course lent itself to risk-taking. Now, I like this one. Lina played within herself. Does anybody know what that means? When Lina played within herself, and she won the championship, let's say, that means Lina didn't try too hard. She was comfortable. She played within herself. She was not overstraining herself, and that's why she was winning. It's a very, very interesting concept. You play within yourself. She danced herself into their hearts. I cry myself. Now all this, I don't know, can you call that active? Can you call it passive? I say it's a third voice, but Arthur can correct me. Okay, now we come to a writing principle very much in evidence in English. And this is the echo principle. Well, there are two slogans. One in Las Vegas. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. This is the Las Vegas slogan. The other one, always turned on, is for another casino city, Atlantic City. Now, which one do you think is more famous? Why? Why is the first one more memorable?
Because it's repeating.
Yeah, it has an echo effect. You know what I mean? When you write, it's good to have this. You have 2 ears. It's good to have the echo effect. Wise men go when they can. Fools go where they must. Now, he is all broadcast and no reception. Some people say that C.Y. Leung doesn't listen. He's talk, but he doesn't receive, you know. Now, a deaf husband and a blind wife makes a happy couple. I love this one. I love him for what he wants to be, and I love him for what he almost is. Now, how do you write something so subtle and balanced? Better a fake somebody than a real nobody. Okay, now you come to the fact that English is made up of earthy, very solid, short, Anglo-Saxon words like come, go, and so on, together with very long, abstract Latin words. For example, I bow to the inevitable. He hates inexactitude. Electoral reform is a bone of contention. Oh, why are you in jail? I committed truth. Instead of saying I committed a crime, you told the truth and that's why you're in jail. The art of learning is, this is a so-called paradoxical attitude. They like to say to have two opposite ideas in the same sentence. For some reason, they think this is smart and sophisticated and for intellectuals only. Oh, this one, don't you love this? You know, in California right now, they have a serious drought for many months now, no rainwater. So now everybody is saying we must stop washing cars too often. So there is a competition now to leave your cars dirty. And this is the latest status symbol. Having a dirty car comes with a clean conscience. How about this? You can have any color you want as long as it is black. Well, this is Henry Ford, you know, the manufacturer of Ford Motor Company, the owner. You can order anything you want as long as it's under $7. Pay attention to this guy. This guy can play magic with words. Boris Johnson, the mayor of London. He looks crazy, but he's not. Very clever guy. So I'm saying to you that you have to pay attention to what I call micro-action verbs. In fact, these verbs affect the way we look at things. It says here, America has lost its, anybody seen this word before? Oomph, meaning energy, vitality. America has lost its vitality, its oomph. Her eyes shimmer with tears. Don't you like this? Rippling muscles. You know what ripples are? When someone who's very big, his muscles move around like ripples. You know, how can you describe that any other way? How about this? The engine cough in the line. You know, when you try to start the engine, it doesn't start too well. So then suddenly, you know, coughs in the line. Very, very graphic. These are words we don't normally use. John Kerry, the U.S. Secretary of State, he rattled off grim statistics of the war. You know, very quickly, he comes up with the figures. I don't have a lot of time to go into this. Now, I want to say this to you. That Toni Morrison, who was a Nobel Prize laureate, black woman, she wrote this. She says, I only have 26 letters of the alphabet. I don't have color, and I don't have music. But somehow I must make my craft, use my craft to make the reader see the colors and hear the sounds. So this is what we have to do. That music, the language should approach the sound of music. That we should write for the ear. You should reject a word if it doesn't sound right. Now, the problem with most Chinese students is that they don't hear what they write. Most of the time, you write without a reader in mind, and you somehow put words on the page without any feeling, without any effect. And that is no good. Now, these 26 letters produce 52 sounds. There are only 9 in Cantonese. Okay? So if you ignore all these sounds that you're not familiar with, you lose out a color and a sound in your language. Look at this. The bear shimmies up the tree. You know when the bear climbs up? Give me another word for that. Shimmy up. The fashion model, not left out one word. So shade down the wall. There's a flickering hope, there's a bumbling idiot. Now, how about this? I'm all splotchy. When a woman cries, her face is stained by tears and is splotchy. I don't know where you're going to find another word to replace this one. So I'm saying, use the so-called very memorable sounds of the language. Bubbly is better than lively. Creaky is better than old. Wobbly is better than unstable. Flip-flop is better than changeable. Twitchy is better than nervous. Sizzling is better than exciting. How about this? Now, very often in English, you create a sound, first of all. You drop something, plonk. You put it up, it's plonk. But then you know what? Plonk becomes cheap wine. Because I suppose that's what you do with a cheap bottle of wine. You just plonk it on the table, right? Just plonk. Plonk is cheap wine. So the sound now has a meaning, a concrete meaning. Okay. Now, when you write for coherence, make use of the alphabet. Look at this. He possesses common sense to an uncommon degree. You play on these two words, different forms. When life gives you lemon, make lemonade. Lemon is something bad, right? He underestimated the likelihood of an unlikely event. He addresses people and addresses their needs. So here are some of the surprisingly fresh words that we don't often use. How about this? Look at this. The event was reported skeletally, meaning not in full, right? You know what skeletons are? She smiles angelically. Wang Qifeng was arrested unceremoniously. The Hong Kong skyline is futuristic. He bowed theatrically. What do you mean by bowing?
Make a big fuss, acting in a big way.
Liu Xiang, well, you know who Liu Xiang is. He's not so famous anymore. But he has a storied career, meaning what? Story here means what? Famous, legendary, right? Unharvested data. He unburdened himself. Oh, the losing team sportingly applauded the winning team. In this sense, sportingly, 好有體育精神，很有體育精神，係嘛？ Sportingly. You know the word sport? But have you ever used sportingly? And if not, why not? Why should you only stick to one form? Here's the surprise part of language. You come by car, by train, by plane. I came by mistake. They're overpaid, oversexed, and over here. Now, these are the British people complaining about American soldiers during the Second World War. They are rich, they have a lot of money, invite girls to go out, fool around, this and that. So they are overpaid, oversexed, and over here. Over here in UK, they don't like it. How long will you love me? Forever and a day. Who said this? Who said this? Shakespeare, 400 years ago. How can you have forever and a day? Forever is forever. But the surprise is he had a day. I have 5 minutes. How about this? Is how you know the Rubik's Cube, right? Celebrating 40 years of frustration. You celebrate frustration.
You know how to play this Rubik's Cube, 9 faces, right?
So don't be so humble. You're not that great. She said it. Go Maya was a very plain grandmotherly type. Not at all good to look at. But she said not being beautiful was a true blessing. Not being beautiful forced me to develop my inner resources. The pretty girl has a handicap to overcome. How about that? Hey, which part of the human body swells to 10 times its normal size during periods of excitement? You are thinking of something you shouldn't be thinking. And you are wrong too to think like that, because you're talking about the pupil of your eye, okay? Not the other organs you had in mind. Now, coherence, when it's conceptual. The roof is caving in on the housing market. Donald Trump, he has a huge wine collection from rich people. He's giving Hong Kong a hangover. What's a hangover? When you're drunk,
You get headaches afterwards, a hangover.
Obama said this. Just because we have the best hammer, it doesn't mean that every problem is a nail. He is saying that America should not interfere anywhere in the world. You only do so selectively. Even though you have the sharpest hammer, you don't strike every nail. Very nice. So now, English is a very complex language. But the good part about being complex is that there's huge variety. You can play with it. This allows writers to find their own ways of dancing with the alphabet. Okay, so you give you the variety and creativity. So, I'm coming to the end here. English is a rich banquet. I can offer you dim sums. The main course, you have to wait for another time, but I invite you to design your own menu. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Philip. I know that Philip would love to hear some comments and take some questions. So we've got about 10, 15 minutes, Philip. You willing?
Yeah, sure.
Yes?
Yep.
Okay.
Of course.
Can I jump in with a quick question
Yeah,
just before
please.
the audience does?
Yeah,
I lost count while you were talking of the number of different categories into which you grouped all the words. How do you go about labeling the categories?
I guess I label them according to the desired result, the effect that I want. And therefore, I don't think of them in terms of being preposition. I see what each so-called part of speech can deliver. And if you think along those lines, you get more out of it. in a nutshell, this is how I see it. So when I look at a noun, I don't see a noun. I see what can a noun do for me in writing. And when I see an adjective, I look at it in the same way. Adjective should be put at the end for effect, always. Very effective, not quite so effective in the middle. And phrases, I think, is overlooked by Chinese people when they write. In fact, I think for language training, we should train people in standard phrases that are very useful for your writing.
Thank you. Anyone got a question or comment? Yes.
Maybe we should give prizes for people who raise their hands and ask questions.
We have microphones going around, so a microphone will come to you if you raise your hand. Thank you. Down in the front.
I want to ask, where can we get exposure to this splendid writing?
Oh, well, thank you for asking. I'm negotiating with the Oxford University Press to publish the book. Of course, it will a lot more material than this, and it will go into actually how you systematically train yourself and sensitize yourself to what is out there in the language. So maybe I forgot to do something here. I want to leave you my email address, and that way we can stay as a, I don't know, as a study group or something. In a few days' time, one of my artists will come out and I will share it with you. Hopefully stimulate your interest in writing and English itself. So remind me before I leave to write the my email address on the board. And you came here obviously because you want to become better writers. And I want to help you if I can. Well, let's learn together, okay? My attitude. You know, this is a it should be an entertaining, relaxed kind of a gathering. So don't feel like you have to ask the most brilliant question. No, you don't. Any doubts in your mind, please, now's the time to raise them. Okay. How many of you are graduate students, postgraduate students, I mean? Can you grab your hands? Wow, there's quite a few. Do you all have writing problems? Or you find writing memorably difficult? How many of you are local students? Okay. Oh, so you didn't go to Occupy Central, huh? Don't worry. The telecast will be repeated I don't know how many times.
At least 4 times a day.
Huh?
At least 4 times a day.
Oh, yeah, okay. Oh, I make a confession. I'm a speechwriter for the person who is convening that meeting. Professor Leonard Yeung. I tell you, he's a nice guy. Please don't give him a label. He doesn't deserve a label. Don't call him CY fan and this and that. He's much bigger than that. Very nice guy who wants to help. Okay. Are you guys writing thesis? Or are you writing papers you want to publish? You know, I have a suggestion for you. I think one way to make your writing more readable is if you start by writing a speech. And I say this because when you make a speech, you have to care about the listener. You are not that distant. You don't want to bore them. Because let's say when I was writing speeches for presidents on, I care very much how the audience react. Because if they don't clap, I know I haven't done my job. So having a reader in mind or audience is a great way to start learning to write. Because too many of us write things that we don't care to read ourselves. We're fed up with what we write. That's no good. Right? Because there's so much beauty in the language. You should try and find it, release it.
I know that a question on many of the students' minds is, dare we use the sort of daring English that you have shown us today? Because very many of us have a training in academic English and what is suitable in an article, for a journal, for example. And we know that the styles of academic publishing are evolving very fast, and many of the conventions that were in place maybe 20 years ago have been broken down. Would you recommend that we take more risks in academic writing?
Okay. Now, if you're not ready and you take the risk, you'll be punished. When you are more sure of yourself, I would say so. Right now, I would say maybe next time we talk about what is good academic writing to start with. And for example, good academic writing almost always involve using a lot of adverbs and adjectives, and abstract expressions. Right? Much more so than if you were writing for a newspaper or magazine for the general public. I wish I could quote you actual examples of how you write good academic English. Maybe that's another workshop we can think about before we start to unlearn the way you write all these years and to write for the popular magazines and articles.
Anyone got anything else to add to what Philip has said? No?
For example, if I'll give you one example. Let's say you don't want to have fruitless preoccupations with the past. Now, fruitless preoccupations with the past, that would be good academic writing. Good academic writing involves playing with the alphabet. Fruitless, you add the preoccupations. I don't know how to explain to you. Maybe you can do it better.
No, I can't, but usually what happens with academic writing is you've got to write something for your advisor or maybe for your examiner, and that is the first thing you do. But then you think, I've spent years conducting all this research, there must be other audiences that I ought to be aiming at. So you might writing for a more popular journal, or you're giving talks where you've got to get the audience interested in the topic. And I think it's the other types of work that come out of academic writing. When you're not writing for your advisor, you're writing for a different audience, that they need to take the ideas and use the sort of advice you've been giving us.
I recommend somebody like Bertrand Russell. He's a philosopher. But the way he writes is so clear, so simple, no wasted words. Look up his History of Western Philosophy. It's highly readable, no difficult words, and yet it's very enjoyable to read. We have a good library here. Check under, prose writers and so on, and see, and maybe follow a few of the prose writers, and pick out the ones you like. There are some very good ones. Now, this is another thing I don't mind doing next time, is to recommend a list of very outstanding prose writers who don't waste words, who say things and immediately create an impact. I think this is the best way, is to learn from the best. You learn his techniques. Don't you think this is a good idea? I give you a whole list. It could be a short story, it could be an article or opinion piece, but I always go for technique in writing. And once you're hooked, you will be a reader for life. Let me say this, you cannot hope to be a good writer without being a greedy reader. You have to. So many people are not reading these days, and you want to be a great writer. It's not possible. I keep telling people the story of so many lonely people who grew up lonely and who grew up with books and became so creative, so inventive. The Nobel Prize winners, several of them were like that. They spent lonely childhoods and they grew into their own world through reading and finding their true identity. There's so many examples. Or even Jane Goodall, you know who she is? She's famous for championing the chimpanzees, right? A woman. Well, she once wrote a book about an African doctor who cared for animals. And that single book changed her life. Now, you guys don't know the power of reading, the power of books. So, for all the talk I've given here, I think the thing that really would truly change you would be if you start picking up a book or an article and start enjoying it. Take it to bed. It's the best bedmate you have, believe me. You sleep better.
Okay. Just before we go, thank you very much. I don't know about you, but I was dazzled by the display of linguistic fireworks that we had today. It's a very long time since we've had a talk where the language was at the center of the talk, and there was very much appreciation of the fun and the vitality of it. And Philip used the word play quite a lot, which is what we're not used to that here. We're used to very strict sentence patterns and things which inhibit us and possibly prevent us from going further in our use of language. Okay, let's say a very big thank you to Philip for enriching our lives. And so if you can say for our associate librarian would like to present you with a souvenir.
Oh, okay.
Oh, all right, very good, thank you.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Wow. You see, two sponsors.
Thanks.
Wow, we did well. We did not go over time. Very good.
Don't forget your email address.
Oh, right. Can you turn on the light? And then raise the goal. Now,
If you guys like, let's start a language study group here, a writing club or something, and please let me hear from you, and I'll share whatever writings I do with you. If I have any linguistic discoveries, I'll put it on it too, right? So hopefully we'll create a new family here of learners. Okay, thank you very much.